Hi guys, and welcome to another tutorial. It's been a while since the last one, but I want to do some pixel art with you today. Today we are going to look at tile sets. So if you're making a 2D game, pixel-based platformer, that retro style, you're probably going to want to make a tile set. Now if I zoom in on this little example, I'm going to show you what we're going to make today. Here we have the tiles themselves that we are going to make. We're going to make about 20 tiles, which can then be used to make a level similar to what we see here. So those tiles get reused. Each tile serves a different purpose. It might be a corner, it might be a middle tile that gets reused, or just something for in the middle of the earth here, or a wall tile, or a little platform. Each tile has its own purpose, and they all click together seamlessly. So from a small number of pieces, we can make large levels. So I'm going to show you today how to make this very basic little grass tile set. The same principles will apply to any kind of tile set you're making, whether it's like a building, something sci-fi, something horror, something brick. You'll be using the same science. So what we're going to show you today is the science really of what we're going to do, and then you can adapt the art style into whatever you want. So we're using Piskel, which is a free browser-based software. There are other better softwares out there. Piskel's a wee bit clunky, but it is free, so that's why I like showing you. The same principles will apply in whatever software you're using. So if we just go to piskelapp.com and then we create sprite, and we'll get this blank window here. The first thing we need to do is set up the size of our canvas. Now, when it comes to tile sets, we're going to be working to a grid, and that grid is the most important thing. So we're going to resize the drawing area. This default is 32 by 32. I'm going to set this to 256 by 256 and hit resize. Now you'll see that mine has a grid here. Yours may not show the grid right away. To get that grid, we want to go to Preferences and Grid. We want to check this Enable Grid button. Now our grid, we can set here the actual thickness of the grid itself. I'm just going to leave that at 1 pixel. And then the grid spacing. Now this is what's important, the grid spacing. We're going to make tiles today that are 16 pixels wide by 16 pixels tall. They're going to be square, basically 16 pixels on each side. So we are going to choose the 16 pixel spacing. We have the other spacing options here, as you see. We're going to choose 16, and it gives us this nice wee grid. You can choose whatever color you want. It'll start on the transparent color. Once you pick any of these colors, you'll see we get a different grid. Some of them are a little bit harsher on the eyes than others. I like this little pink one. It's kind of clear, but not too in your face. I think that's all we really need to do here. So we can just click off that. And we will start up near the top left here. And we're going to start with our basic 9 tiles. Now the basic 9 tiles that we have in a tile set can then be duplicated and edited to give us all the rest. So we're going to make grass and dirt. So let's choose the rectangle tool here. I'm going to go down to my color picker and I'll just choose a nice mid-green. And starting at the top left of one tile, I'm going to do a little row here that is exactly 1, 2, 3, 4 pixels tall and exactly 3 tiles wide. Now you'll notice that it's going right up to the top of this line and right to the very edges here, and it's 4 pixels. I'll just take my paint bucket tool and we'll fill that in, give us a nice wee solid block there. I'm going to choose that rectangle tool again, go to my color, I'm going to choose a sort of light to medium brown, and this will be the dirt underneath. Now with this, I'm not going to go right to the very corner, I'm going to come just 1 pixel in, and I'm going to fill this down pretty much the height of 3 tiles. Now you'll see here we've got 1, 2, 3, but I've just left a 1 pixel gap just along the edges here. Now this isn't 100% necessary, but I think for this little tile set it makes it look nice. If I go back to my demo one here, you'll see what the final result will be. We can just round this off a little bit. We can have a little bit of the grass hanging over, a little bit of roundness on the edge. And if we come here, we can see that we can just break away from that grid size ever so slightly, and it gives us a nice wee visual effect on the tile. It helps to get away from that very square look that we do tend to get with these kind of designs. So we're just one smaller. We're leaving 1 pixel gap all the way around these bottom and 2 sides. And we will fill that. Now let me see. I'm not too happy with that color. Let me just change that, lighten that up a wee bit. Something more like that. That's nicer. Maybe just a little adjustment again. There we go. That's not too bad. I'm going to take my eraser tool and just to round it off, as we said, I'm going to just delete the corners of the grass, just to round it off slightly. And just at the very bottom here, we're just going to delete these bottom 2 wee corner pixels. And again, that will just sort of round off these edges. Now, what have we actually created here? We have created a top left tile. If I just use my rectangle, I can just select these. We've got a top left, we've got a top right, and we've got a middle tile. Now, if I go back to my demo, you can see how this has been used. There we have the top left. Then we have a middle tile. We're going to these ramps, we'll talk about those later. But then just that middle tile is repeated over and over again until we hit our next different tile. Now, don't use the right corner tile in this, but you can see how that would work. We go as wide as we want, and then we're going to have the right corner tile and a cliff on this side. We've also created a left wall and a right wall. We've created a left overhang tile and a right overhang tile. And we just have a center tile. That center tile is going to be the one that's reused over and over again. All of these tiles and a few others are just that center tile reused just to fill up the bulk in the middle of our solid land masses. Here we have the left wall, and we can really use this as many times as we want. We can make very tall cliffs, just be repeating that tile over again. In fact, that's what we have here. There's the left wall, repeat it over and over again to create cliffs of varying height. And we can use these overhangs to do the ceilings of caves, the corners, and what else can we do? If we have little floating platforms, these can be the underside of floating platforms as well. So you'll see that this itself does look like a little square floating platform. That's what we can use this for. We can use it for floating platforms of any size. So this is very, very basic. I'm looking at this. I still don't like that color. Let me see. What color did I use here? That was just a little bit nicer, is it? Yeah, it's just a little bit more. I don't know. Really helps if you get the color right first of all. Yeah, that's nice now. A little bit more reddy, a little bit more browny. There we are. Let me see, what do we do? Let's add a little bit of shading and highlighting to this to just make it a little bit more decorative. So the green, I'm going to use my color picker tool. I'm going to pick this green, and then I'm going to go just slightly darker. If I come down the way and slightly to the right, I can get a darker, more saturated version of this. And I'll use my stroke tool here, and I'll just do a nice dark line on the bottom side. I'll also just darken this bottom left pixel here. Now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to go up and slightly to the left, and that'll give me a brighter color. And if I just click off that with my stroke tool again, I'll just lighten up the top line. I might even lighten that a little bit further. And there we see we have a lighter top edge for that grass. Now, we're using very basic color theory here. We've got the base color, which would be our mid-tone. We've got a darker color for the shades on the underside, a lighter color for the highlights on the top side. If we imagine we're going to make our tile set as if it's always being lit kind of from above, and this gives it just a little bit of depth, a little bit of roundness, a little bit more detail. Now, a cool little thing I like to do with some of these, just to break it up a little bit, is if I pick that ground color again, just maybe delete just a couple of pixels from each tile, just something like that. Nothing too extravagant. Just take away a couple of tiles, and it just allows us to, a couple of pixels, sorry, just allows you to break this surface ever so much. I'm not going to break the top because we have a little character running on top of this. We want a nice smooth surface for him. We can add other decorations on top of this later on, but the tile itself, let's keep it flat. Now I'm just going to go and fill in those shadows again. like so, like so. And you'll notice a nice little rule of pixel art. We don't want to be filling these completely around like that. That looks a bit heavy-handed. We generally want to avoid that staircasing effect. So we're going to leave those corners unfilled. If I just undo. So if we look right in close here, look at the relationship here of how we do the corners. This gives a nice softer kind of edge. Piskel has got the worst zoom of any software I've ever seen. It's either 0% or 1,000,000,000%. Let me get in closer a bit. There we go. So we're going to do the same. We're going to just go for a slightly darker left side and a lighter right side for the dirt. So let's pick our dirt color again. Let's go a good bit darker. I'll use that line tool there, and let's do a line all the way down the left. That's maybe too dark. Just lighten up slightly. Let's try that. Yeah, that's not bad. That's very nice. And we'll do the, oops, 1 pixel too many there. We'll do the left side and the bottom side. I'll just get my eraser tool and take that wee corner back out. And I will just lighten this up again ever so slightly. I'll do another line. Let's see how that looks. That's pretty good. Again, just to help with the blending of this just a little bit. We will pick our original color, and this time we will go a good bit lighter. Down the right side. And the reason why we add these highlights and things is, it again, helps to differentiate each tile. It shows the left side as being different from the right side. Adds a little bit of visual interest to everything that we have here. So there we are. We've got a little bit of shading going on there. That looks quite nice. Still a very, very simple tile set, but we've got a little bit of stuff happening there. One last thing I'll do, I'll just add a little bit of shading. If we take our dark color again, and just with my pen tool here, I'm actually just going to shade in underneath that grass. And this is really nice. It makes it look like that grass is kind of overhanging the dirt a little bit, as if it's kind of long and unkempt, and kind of, if this was a cliff, it's kind of hanging over the sides. Just do that there. And maybe just leave a little brighter bit at the side there. That looks pretty good. God damn it, Piskel. What do I want to do now? Now this is still very, very plain. If we look here on the demo, all I did this time was just add a few little dots. We can do lots of complicated things for patterns, but yeah, I'm just going to go dots. Let's just pick the base color, go slightly darker. In fact, let's just keep everything nice and refined. Let's actually pick that semi-dark color, not the darkest, just the semi-dark color. I'll just put a couple of little dots in here on each tile. Not too many. Just something to add a little bit of texture. Now this is not going to look anyway refined at all, but it's just to have a little bit of something. Now I'm going to throw these in randomly, then we'll talk about what we have and maybe make a few corrections. So there we are, just some dots. Piskel does have a tool in here. I'll just show you the lighten and darken tool. If we roll over here, it's lightening and darkening, and if we hold Control, it will actually darken. Now this is kind of a cool tool, but not really good for making tile sets, so use this at your peril. We want these to repeat nicely, and you'll see that these aren't really going to look nice if we repeat them. It would take a lot of work to get that working correctly if we were repeating these tiles over and over. So that's why I just like this simple dot effect here. It's not particularly elegant, but it will work. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay in a little bit heavier towards the bottom here. I'll keep it quite light up here in the middle and the higher ends, but down here in the bottom, we'll go in just a little bit more with those dots, just to add in a little bit of kind of like a speckly shading effect. There we go, that'll do. A couple more. So one thing we want to avoid here is having anything that will look too repetitive if we see it over and over again. Now we're generally only going to see one of these corner tiles on each platform, but we could see this middle one repeat it over and over again. So when we do tile sets, what we want to make sure we avoid is anything that's too obvious. So if I did a very distinct shape like this little L shape here, we repeat this tile, we're going to see that L shape over and over again, and it's going to be really distracting to the eye. We're going to see that shape over and over. So we want to avoid anything like that. So let's just paint that out again, that little shape. And also what I even want to avoid is here we have two pixels touching each other. Even that can be very, very obvious that it's repeating. So I'm just going to paint those out. It's not going to be as bad down here if that happens because we've got a lot more pixels of these darker spots. But anywhere else that you have that, try and avoid that happening. We want this to look really, really plain, really inoffensive, really not drawing attention to itself. This is background detail. What we can do is we can make separate layers for things like rocks and maybe bones and little cracks and stuff in the earth and put them on a layer on top and add them in separately. But we don't want to do that to the base tile set. We want the base tile set to be as kind of plain and generic as we can make it. Okay. So that's our basic 9 tiles. And again, apologies for the zoom and Piskel here. It's really got a terrible, terrible zoom. Let's see, what else do we want to do now? The other types of tiles that we can make are, let's say, our basic 9 tile grid here. This is good for making large platforms. What if we want to make small platforms? Maybe something that's only 1 tile wide or 1 tile tall. So we can get this little wide platform here. Or we could even make a little single platform like so. Or we can do a tall and narrow. Let me show you just how we'll make those very, very quickly. Let's take our basic little set here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the rectangle selection tool. Now, this is where I'll point out that Piskel has some really annoying controls. If you're using other sprite software, it might be a bit easier to copy and paste. Piskel is just a little bit funny with the controls. So what we need to do is select the rectangle selection tool. We're going to take the top half of this tile here. We're going to hold shift on our keyboard and we're going to drag this over to the side. Now you'll see that it takes it along with it and we've got this kind of shadowy version. If I now press Control Z on my keyboard, it will put the original back where it was and still leave this shadow here. If we click off that shadow, it will make a duplicate. This is really, really stupid way of doing this. I don't know why it's so strange in Piskel, but it's what we're kind of stuck with. If you do have other pixel software, I would advise using it. But Piskel's free, here we are. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bottom row here of this tile. And I'm going to again hold shift and drag. I will press, now I can't see the whole thing, so I'm just dragging it up here out of the way for now. I will press Control Z on my keyboard to put the original back where it was. And then I can still move about and take this duplicate and I'll just move it up. I'm getting a little bit of overlap there, as you can see. I'm not too worried about it. The only thing I want to make sure is this fits inside the grid. We cannot let this hang over the grid. It won't work. Our tiles have to be inside the grid. If I click off my selection, there we are. We can see that now. We've got a nice little 1 tile deep layer of platforms there. And what we can do is we can have the left side, we can have the right side, and we can have as many of this metal tile as we want to make platforms of various widths. Let's do the same again. If I zoom out a little bit here, we are going to choose the left side. We are going to hold shift and we'll drag that over here. Control Z to put it back where it was. Click off to make the copy. Let's take the right side of this one. Hold shift to drag it where we want it. Control Z, replace it, click off to paste it. So here we have our tall, narrow platforms. Now this looks quite nice, but I may just want to go in here and do a couple of wee tweaks. Maybe, let's see, let's take this color. We'll just take a couple more wee bits here, something like that. And we will just do a little bit of patching here. You may not have to do this, it may turn out correctly, but depending on how you painted this little top surface, you might need to do a wee bit of patchwork and repair work. It's nothing major, just use your eye to see what looks well. So there we go, there's a tall one. Now, one last little tile we'll do is, what if we want a single little tile, a single little platform. Let's just try and get in closer to the corner. There we are. It's hard without zooming in. Let's make another duplicate of this. Now, I'm actually going to just pull these quite far apart for the purposes of us making this little video and you seeing the different tiles I'm making. I'm going to keep them separate so you can see what's what and where's where. Just repeating those same controls. But you'll notice in my demo one, I actually do shift them all around again just to get them all nice and tightly compact. This is how we would want to bring it in game, nice and tightly compact, because then it would give us a smaller file overall. It's easier to split up, easier to load, etc. Less memory. So there we are, we've got our main, we've got our narrow platforms, or a single platform. What do we want to make next? The next thing I want to make is some of these little filler tiles here that aren't quite as exciting to look at, but they're really important to make sure everything clicks together nicely. So the first one that we will make is this little tile here. Actually, both of these tiles. This little tuft of grass on the left and tuft of grass on the right. Now, what do they come in handy for? If we have our flat surface coming up against a cliff, these little bits of grass can help to blend it into that cliff and make it look quite nice. So there is a single side cliff, and here we actually have a third little tile that we'll make, where it's just if we have a single width tile coming up like a little obstacle there. These are really, really easy to make. Let's just duplicate our center tile here, hold shift, drag it across, and Control Z to replace it, and here we are. So we're probably going to need a couple of copies of this. Whoops, let me zoom in. We will just pick our colors. Let's pick our middle ground color here. And we're just going to put a tiny little tuft of grass here. Again, 4 pixels tall. Let's fill it in. And we'll go for our lighter color and darker color. So the top can be the lighter color. The bottom can be the darker color. And there we are, as easy as that, we have that little tile. We'll just add in our little shadow as well. There we are, easy peasy. So that's the right side done. We'll just do the same for the left side. Sorry, that is the left side, we'll do the same for the right side. We will copy that middle tile again. We'll just bring it over here. We'll bring it over right beside. Control Z, replace it, click off to place it. Now we're going to do the right side. Let's pick our colors again. The good thing about these tile sets is there's so much of it is done just by copying and pasting, especially from those basic 9 tiles. Once we have those basic 9 tiles, a lot of the rest of it is copy pasting, and there's very little actual work from scratch that we need to do. Just place in the wee shadow underneath. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Perfect. That leaves us just with the third one, where we have one tile with both of those little tufts of grass. If we zoom in here, and that is very, very easy to make. I'm sure you can guess by now how we're going to do that. We are going to select this one, half of this. I'll just put it over here. Let's put it up here out of the way. Control Z, click off. Then we'll take this half, hold shift and drag, put it up here, make sure it fits within the bounds. Control Z to put it back where it was, click off to have there. There we go, perfect. That's those 3 tiles. What else do we want to make now? Let's see what we have in our little demo. Let's do a few of the underside tiles now. So if we have a little overhang, we're going to make these little tiles here. Now you see there's just a tiny little corner here really. That's all we really need. or in the case of a single column falling down, we'll do a little, basically little T shape here, where we have these two corners kind of carved out. So again, quite easy to make. Let's get a little look here. How we're going to start this is we are going to take our, let's take our middle tile once again. I'll try and select that whole tile. We'll take it down here. Control Z to put it back, and there we are. Now we know that our bottom side, we get rid of the very bottom row of pixels, and then we have our two dark layers, and then our basic layer with all the dots. So if we have a little corner here, we're going to leave a little empty dot. Better just to show you. We'll just take our delete tool, empty one here, and we will pick some of these darker colors just to fill that in and make it blend in with our other color schemes. So this one actually will take the very bright color here, and the slightly darker color, because it's got one of those right side tiles, and we'll just make that little bend there, as you can see. Now we don't really need to add anything else to this, that'll do fine, but we will just make one more copy of our middle tile. Hold shift and drag. Let's bring you over here, just leave a little bit of a gap. Again, we will want to condense these when we finally export them, but just so you can see what each individual tile is doing, I'm just keeping them a bit separate for now. So this one, because it's on the right hand side, if you can imagine, going below this tile will be a left wall, so it'll be a dark shadow. Going underneath this one will be a right wall, so it will be a light shadow. Or to actually show you what I mean, here we are. Left side's dark shadow, right side highlight. So just curling these in here, curl them in to blend up with the colors that they need, whether they are going to the left side or the right side. Here we can see the left side, that left bottom corner is dark. This right bottom corner is blending into a light one, so we use a bit of light. Easy peasy once you kind of get used to it. I'll just pick my colors from where I can see them here. Do I need these? No, I don't actually need that one. Let's just get that slightly darker color. There we are. Perfect. Easy peasy. Again, what we'll also need is one with this on both sides. Let's just copy and paste, save ourselves some work. I will just shift, put you up there, and take this left side here. Hold shift, Control Z, there we go. And now we have that one where it can lead down into a single width tile hanging down, which is just this one that we already made. So if we want to have that hanging down from a cave, we now have this little blend tile, which is exactly what we need. Let me see, how many have we got here? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. That's actually most of our tiles that we need. That is us almost complete. The only other one that I'll talk about today is these little diagonal tiles. Now the diagonals are a little bit more difficult. So let's get a look. I'll show you a couple of ways to do this. Let's see, how are we for time? We are on, 29 minutes. Okay, we'll wrap this up very, very quickly. I'll just show you some of these diagonal tiles. To do the diagonals, I'm actually going to copy a couple of these just so we can see what's happening. We can have a tile here, and we might have a tile here. So we could have a very steep diagonal. And if I zoom in here on these two, we could have a very steep diagonal. And what I'll do is I will just choose my lines here, and I will connect from here up to here. Might I just go one pixel down? If you see that there, that little double pixel in the middle. It's not very aesthetically pleasing. If I bring this down just one, it will still work. If I now pick the darker color and go from the bottom here up to here, even one below, that'll work. And then I can fill the rest with my mid-tone color. And there you can see we get the blend. Now this is very, very steep, very, very sharp. We can play about with this, do a bit more. But what we will do is pick color. We'll use that line tool just to fill in a little solid block here. And then we can use the fill tool. Now what you'll notice with this one is that we actually have two tiles to make the diagonal. We have our little blend tile here, and then we have the ramp itself. Now note that the ramp doesn't need a blend tile at the top, it only needs a blend tile at the bottom, just because of the fact that we have this depth to the grass. So we can still do a few other things here. We can take the shadow and put that in, but what we'll probably want to do as well is maybe ruffle this up a little bit. Let's maybe make this a wee bit less even in certain spots, something like that, just so that we can have it looking not so consistent the whole time. We'll pick our color, paint in those couple of wee shadowy bits. This maybe doesn't look great, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to do here. Paint those shadows in, maybe one down like that. And again, we don't ever want that wee staircase solid corner effect, so I'm just going to delete that little corner there and soften it a wee bit. There we go. Not perfect, but that will do. I will probably go back. Actually, do you know what? Looking at it as annoying me. Let's put in a little bit of green there again, a little bit of green there. That'll be lovely. But that's a very steep ramp. If we wanted this ramp to be more than one tile, we would just repeat both of these. Let's take this here and you'll see what I mean. If I repeat this any higher, you'll see that I have to actually take both of these tiles, and you'll see how our little blend tile here gets used over and over just to blend these together. Now, depending on your design, you might not need a blend tile, but for this particular grass and dirt, we need that little blend tile between them. That's a very steep ramp. We may not want to do quite as steep a ramp, so let me just show you how you might also do this. In fact, I'm not even going to create it. We'll just flick over to the pre-made one. You'll see on this one, there's our little blend tile, but to get a shallower angle, this actually goes across 3 tiles. So rather than just being a straight line up here, we could do 1, we could even do 2. I chose to do 3. It gives us a nice shallow angle. You could in fact do all the different varieties. You can have as complicated a tile set with as many tiles as you want, and there's nothing stopping you from having a 1 tile, a 2 tile, or a 3 tile ramp. Any of those will work quite well. Here's the 1 tile, here's the 3 tile, we'll do 2 tile. You can do 4 tile, you can do 5 tile if you want. That might be a bit too shallow, and you might need a few other blend shapes. The only other thing that I created on this tile set was a couple of rocks here. Now you'll see that these are just stationary rocks floating in empty transparent space. What we can do is we can put these on, if we were in Unreal or Unity, making our tile sets, put these on a separate layer in front of the ground tiles. Now I can't exactly do it in Piskel, but we could place those rocks just randomly throughout the solid mass here, just to give it a bit of variety. And we could again have cracks, bones, skeletons, different types of rocks, big rocks, small rocks, whatever you want, just to add a bit of variety in there. I think that's where I'm going to leave this today. We've made all of the basic tiles there. Last thing we would want to do is maybe just tidy these up a little bit. Again, with a rectangle tool, we can just grab these And if we hold shift, just drag them around. Just place them in. No control Z this time, none of that stuff. We just want to compact these up as dense as we can get them. And let me see, just shift a few of them up here. I'm doing it a bit quick and careless here, so maybe a little pixel off in places. But you can see what our intentions are. We want to get this nice and compact so that we can make a nice little tight spreadsheet, or a nice little sprite sheet. And you'll be able to tell from how they look what each sprite's used for anyway. That's not too bad. As I say, this is just a basic intro guide to the types of tiles you'll need. If you go and play now with different art styles, we can make bricks, we can make blocks, we can make caverns, we can make all kinds of things, sci-fi, metal interiors, all kinds of stuff using these basic tile sets. Any tile set you make will use this basic framework of the sort of top left, top right, middle tile, bottom left, bottom right, bottom middle, etc. If you get these tiles into your head, anytime you're making anything, repeat this formula and you'll have great seamless tile sets that we can use to make lovely little levels that all blend together nicely, as you can see here. Thank you very much for watching. I think we'll leave it here today. We'll follow this one up, maybe a few different types of tiles and things to look out for. But I think that's enough for today. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.